Generational talent is different. Who are generationally talented quarterbacks to you?
I mean, present day or college kids?
If you go present
like in
day,
the NFL?
In the NFL, who's a
Lamar.
He ain't Lamar.
I'm not saying he's Lamar.
But it's the other thing, though. The people you're comparing him to, right? Like, let's just talk about the people you're comparing it to. You know what Lamar Jackson had by this point in college? A Heisman.
But Lamar played a lot more. He had stopped.
Because he was that good.
RC, Lamar's first start, he went 9 of 20 with a pick.
This is third start. Stop saying it's
against the real opponent.
It's his third.
Against the real opponent.
And also, too.
Okay, so we can go to
year in college.
But he hasn't played bowling.
Because you know why? Because if you're Trevor Lawrence and you're a transcendent generational quarterback talent, Kelly Bryant can be the incumbent starter.
Ryan Clark just snapped on Dan Orlovsky, and it turned into straight-up madness. Dan really had the nerve to take a shot at Shadur before the Lions even touched the turf, and Ryan wasn't having it for a second. This wasn't just some sports talk segment. This was a roast, a fiery clapback, and a full-blown football meltdown all wrapped into one explosive moment. If you ever thought pre-game chatter was dull, this right here proved you wrong. Clark didn't just step into an argument. He came in swinging like it was war. Forget throwing shade, Ryan unloaded heavy artillery and left the whole panel shook. And the poor soul on the other end of the blast? Dan Orlovsky, the former quarterback turned analyst whose entire legacy of shaky hot takes just got dragged out into the spotlight and shredded in front of everybody. The madness all kicked off over Arch Manning. At first, it sounded like an innocent little debate about generational talent. But nope, this thing went nuclear in seconds.
Things got real heated in the ESPN studios as Ryan Clark completely destroyed Dan Orlovsky over his Arch Manning generational take. Now, we've seen Dan Orlovsky's bad take on Shedeur Sanders, and Ryan Clark has had enough. But we're gonna, guys, man, I'm here to tell you, man, it seems like Ryan Clark has had enough of Dan Orlovsky's bad takes when it comes to these quarterbacks. Now, we all seen and we've all heard Dan Orlovsky's take on Shedeur Sanders. We also seen him compare Dylan Gabriel to Shedeur Sanders.
Dan, bless his clueless optimism, hopped on the hype train like a kid locked inside a candy store with no exit. He couldn't stop himself. Arch Manning is the next big thing. The future of football, he said with his chest. Meanwhile, Ryan Clark sat back with that look, the kind of look that screamed, "Oh no, you're really about to embarrass yourself right now." Ryan Clark leaned in with that deadly calm and warned, "You're about to cross the line of reality, and I'm going to enjoy every second of this." And, oh, he wasn't bluffing. He did what Ryan Clark always does best, expose the whole broken system that lets washed-up quarterbacks decide who's a superstar and who's overrated. The stage was set, and Dan Orlovsky came in rattling off stats like a kid desperately reading off a homework assignment. 6'4", 225 pounds, runs 21 miles per hour on GPS, Dan blurted out, like that was supposed to prove everything. Clark didn't even blink. He cut him off and dropped a truth bomb that shut the room down. He said you don't need a radar gun to figure out if a quarterback can actually run the league. Arch Manning sprinting is not the same as Lamar Jackson breaking ankles and leaving defenders spinning in circles. That comparison was insane, and Ryan made sure to bury it on the spot. You could almost see Orlovsky's soul float out his body right then, and the brilliance of Clark's clapback wasn't just about the numbers, it was about the principle. Mediocre quarterbacks are addicted to mediocrity, plain and simple. They see themselves in average players, mistake hype for talent, and rush to crown someone who hasn't proven a thing. And let's be real.
Can you define to me what that means?
Well, generational talent would be that you have physical attributes that are rare and unique. When did 6'4", 225 pounds, 4'5", 4'6" in the 40.
None of those things.
100%. He's 100% 6'4", 220 plus pounds, and is like 4'5", 4'6" in 40. Got clocked at 21 miles an hour on GPS. When did that not become at the quarterback spot generational physical ability, let alone elite, rare bloodlines when it comes to the quarterback position?
Orlovsky has built his whole analyst career on that exact routine. He tears down actual elite quarterbacks and props up question marks while acting like he's the self-appointed guardian of generational greatness. But Clark wasn't playing gatekeeper games. He came through with a sledgehammer and blew the whole gate down. And the wildest part? Arch Manning was just the bait on the hook for a much bigger takedown. The one who really got burned in all this? Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback who's been grinding at every single level, carrying entire programs on his shoulders, proving himself week after week, yet still getting brushed aside by analysts who wouldn't know true elite talent if it smacked them in the face. Ryan Clark didn't even have to call Shedeur's name to make the point. By shredding Dan Orlovsky's so-called logic, he exposed exactly why players like Shedeur get ignored, while three-star projects get hyped up as once in a generation. And then, this is where things turned into pure chaos. Clark came straight for Orlovsky's credibility. Out of nowhere, he dropped the line that's about to live forever in sports talk history. I don't care what this little vest you wear on top of your nipples say. Boom. Mic dropped, jaws dropped, the whole studio frozen. The image of Orlovsky clinging to his numbers, his analytics, his hype charts, while Clark tore him apart with raw experience and cold facts, it was almost cartoon-level embarrassing. Like watching a man proudly build a sandcastle right before a tidal wave smashes it to dust. And let's be clear, Ryan Clark was that tidal wave. He didn't just bring passion, he brought receipts that crushed everything Orlovsky stood on. Clark lined up the real generational quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence, Caleb Williams, Lamar Jackson, guys who walk in and change the game instantly, who don't need to sit and wait, who don't just collect likes on Instagram while holding a clipboard. These are the ones who force defenses to adapt the moment they step onto the field, and Clark made sure everyone knew the difference. They dominate. They flip teams upside down. They force coaches, fans, and even haters to swallow their pride and admit they were wrong. And right there with them is Shedeur Sanders, walking into programs like Jackson State and Colorado, rewriting the script, carrying the weight, and still getting downplayed like he hasn't earned a thing. It's absurd, it's disrespectful, and honestly, it's comedy gold watching Dan Orlovsky squirm under the spotlight. And then came the breaking point.
As Dan Orlovsky gets, he keeps on bigging up Arch Manning to make Arch Manning one of the greatest quarterbacks he's seen in college history. Now, there's a long list of quarterbacks that we can talk about in college that was great. But the thing about it is Dan Orlovsky's takes on these quarterbacks, because Dan Orlovsky was a quarterback himself. And like I stated to you guys, man, Dan Orlovsky likes mediocrity. He likes mediocre players because he was a mediocre quarterback himself. And Dan Orlovsky takes on these quarterbacks is downright asinine. And Ryan Clark wastes no time in destroying everything that he has to say about these quarterbacks.
Orlovsky actually tried to explain away the whole disrespect by blaming it on NIL money. Like, seriously, that's the excuse? As if contracts and brand deals somehow stop a quarterback from proving himself on the field. Clark didn't even blink. He shut that down instantly. Generational talent doesn't sit around waiting for paperwork. It doesn't negotiate with mediocrity. True greatness forces its way in, leaves no room for doubt, and demands recognition whether people are ready or not. That's exactly what Shedeur Sanders has been doing. Coaches have had no choice but to adjust to his presence, programs have been elevated overnight, and fan bases that were dead quiet are suddenly alive and obsessed. That's not hype. That's reality staring everyone in the face. Meanwhile, Orlovsky's still clinging to his little vest, clutching numbers, speed stats, and desperate excuses, trying to crown hype over actual production. And the beauty in this whole clash? Clark didn't just ride for Shedeur. He tore the mask off a much bigger issue. Analysts like Orlovsky build fake narratives off family names, old biases, and hype instead of the cold, hard truth of who's really dominating the game. They hype up potential like it's already proven skill, while real grinders with elite resumes get ignored. And it's not even subtle. It's loud, it's embarrassing, and Clark exposed it with ease. Picture being Dan Orlovsky in that moment. You've built your whole career on analyzing quarterbacks, tossing out stats like confetti, and then suddenly a former NFL player who's actually been in those trenches starts ripping apart every weak spot in your playbook. You try to backpedal, talk about different eras, maybe even toss in excuses about NIL money or competition levels, but by then, it's too late. The house of cards is collapsing. And the best part? The audience is watching every second. Orlovsky's credibility melted away faster than ice in the desert, and Clark didn't let up. He wasn't just killing numbers, he was crushing the logic itself.
Talent? Then who is? And how are we measuring it? Because we can't sit there and go, because of the way the first start on the road.
There's very few of them. I think there's less than what you think. I think John Elway was a generational talent. I think Patrick Mahomes is a generational talent. I don't think Tom Brady, I don't think Drew Brees, I don't think Peyton Manning are generational talents. I think Andrew Luck ended up being a generational talent. I don't think there's a ton of them out there.
But so then what? Then how does one, in your eyes, be a generational talent? Because there's not a lot of difference.
If Arch Manning can be called generational after 3 career starts, then what does that mean for guys like Shedeur Sanders, who have consistently proven themselves against real competition? Shadur doesn't need some fake hype machine. His receipts are right there in black and white. The stats, the wins, the clutch plays, they don't lie. Shadur walks into a program and instantly raises the entire standard, yet the media machine acts blind. Instead of celebrating results, they hype up hype itself, and the irony is delicious. The same Dan Orlovsky, who's supposed to be an expert evaluator of quarterbacks, got schooled in front of everyone on what true talent really looks like, while still trying to lecture the audience about potential. Ryan Clark wasn't just defending Shedeur Sanders here, he was torching the entire system. Every flaw in the way media props up mediocrity and dismisses proven greatness got dragged into the light. And the people watching, they saw Orlovsky squirm, they saw the excuses fall apart, and they knew Clark just shook the foundation of sports commentary. It was brutal, it was hilarious, and it was pure chaos, but it was necessary. Players like Shedeur Sanders fight uphill battles every single day, not because they aren't elite, but because lazy narratives are easier to sell than actual evaluation.
In fact, RC, I thought you described it very well in our meeting this morning, what it is they are and aren't doing.
Yeah, what it is that they're doing is they're treating Shedeur Sanders like a 5th-round pick.
Right.
Right? We're not covering every 5th-round pick in the NFL hoping that he gets an opportunity to be the starter on day 1. We felt like, oh my goodness, they got a diamond in the rough. Shedeur Sanders fell to the 5th round. They felt like they evaluated him there, and that's where they picked him.
Analysts cling to old school biases, family names, and hype machines instead of giving credit where it's due, and Ryan Clark ripped that whole facade apart. The wildest part? He didn't even need Shadeur's name front and center. By tearing down Dan Orlovsky's nonsense, Clark exposed the bias, the double standards, and the absurd way the system protects hype while ignoring proven greatness. Then came the fallout. Orlovsky, desperate to save face, tried to point back to measurables, GPS speed, arm strength, even hiding behind that ridiculous little vest like it could protect him from the smoke. But Clark didn't budge an inch. He made it crystal clear. You can't measure heart on a radar gun. You can't quantify poise with a stopwatch. And you definitely can't call someone generational off 3 career starts while dismissing a guy who's been consistently dominating the field. That vest joke, it wasn't just funny, it was lethal. It summed up everything wrong with letting analytics and empty hype overshadow actual performance. Generational greatness doesn't wait for hype. It shows up, takes over, and forces people to respect it whether they like it or not. And Shedeur Sanders is living proof. He steps into a struggling program, flips the energy, makes clutch plays that silence critics, earns respect from teammates older than him, and still, he gets downplayed by the same media machine that won't shut up about unproven prospects. It's not just disrespect, it's comedy gold.
The Shedeur Sanders is being set up to fail narrative. Who do you want to start the game? It's preseason week 1. First option, Joe Flacco. He's played for like 20 years. He's not going to start preseason week 1. The next 2 options would be a Kenny Pickett or a Dylan Gabriel. Both are dealing with hamstring injuries. Neither has practiced a ton recently. If they've done anything, I believe it's been 7-on-7. Who do you want to start the game? The next two options are Shadur and Snoop Huntley. Shedur's been there.
And Clark turned the entire thing into a public lesson. And then came the knockout punch. Ryan Clark broke down the insanity of calling someone generational after just 3 starts. Generational talent doesn't need training wheels. It explodes onto the scene, takes over instantly, and leaves an impact that nobody can deny. Caleb Williams did it. Trevor Lawrence did it. Lamar Jackson did it. And yes, Shedeur Sanders is doing the exact same thing. Meanwhile, Dan Orlovsky sat there clutching speed stats like a lifeline, missing the big picture entirely. The irony, flawless. The comedy, next level. And for fans who actually love the game, the frustration was sky high. By the time it all played out, it was obvious this wasn't just about Arch Manning or even Shedeur Sanders. It wasn't just about Dan Orlovsky's takes either. It was about exposing an entire broken system that rewards hype and punishes proven performance. Analysts like Orlovsky are supposed to provide insight, context, and fair evaluations.
Moves slowly, kind of trying to see what's going on, and then that creates that sack fumble. So a lot of the stuff that we just saw in college is a big deal. This ball gets snapped at the 48-yard line. Defense has won the rep. Play is dead. Throw the ball away.
Yep.
It's first down. But instead we run, and it's a 2.5, 3-yard loss. So instead of being 2nd and 10, we're 2nd and 13. We're dead. Again, here's the opportunity to throw the juke route. Hold, scramble. So some of those things that I was and others were concerned about on the college tape showed itself again. This is not the end of the world, though. This is part of his development.
Instead, they push shallow narratives, inflate unproven prospects, and constantly downplay the ones who already show greatness on the field. Clark didn't just challenge that framework, he burned it down in one sitting, showing what happens when credibility and first-hand experience collide with weak analysis and empty numbers. And here's the beauty of it. Clark didn't even have to yell. He didn't need wild exaggerations or over-the-top antics. He just calmly, methodically tore Orlovsky apart point by point until the flimsy arguments collapsed. Watching Orlovsky try to recover, stammering and scrambling for excuses, was like watching a comedian bomb on stage while the crowd laughs at his struggle. Clark turned accountability into entertainment, and the audience loved every second of it. It was like watching a slow-motion train wreck, except the train was packed with terrible quarterback takes, and Ryan Clark was lobbing truth grenades at it from every angle.
My analysis on Shedeur Sanders for the people that messaged me Uncle Tom or commented, fool, I do want to say something to you sincerely from the bottom of my heart, and that's kiss my I'm not going to holler sabotage and racism when I don't truly believe something is sabotage and racism. I did have a problem with the way Shedeur Sanders was covered in the pre-draft process. The anonymous reports demeaning a young man's character who had never done anything wrong away from the field, had never shown anything but leadership.
The chaos was wild, the energy unmatched, and once it started, you couldn't look away. You wanted to, but it was way too satisfying watching Dan Orlovsky's credibility get shredded in real time. By the time Clark wrapped up, Orlovsky's rep was in absolute ruins. The audience saw it, the fans saw it, even other analysts watching had to admit it. If you're leaning on Dan Orlovsky to decide who's elite and who isn't, you might as well flip a coin, because his takes, unstable, inconsistent, and completely exposed. Real talent doesn't need hype. Real talent puts results on the board, forces people to pay attention, and commands respect, whether the media wants to give it or not. And Shedeur Sanders is the perfect example of that truth, walking proof that greatness can't be ignored no matter how hard the system tries to bury it. That's why this moment is about to live forever in sports media history. Clark didn't just roast Orlovsky, he held up a mirror to the whole system, and the reflection was brutal, hilarious, and oh so satisfying. So the next time you hear an analyst gassing up a 3-star generational quarterback while downplaying someone who's been consistently elite, remember this moment, remember the chaos, remember the little vest, and remember Ryan Clark dismantling an entire narrative with nothing but logic, experience, and pure fire. And here's the wildest part. The ripple effect didn't stop with Dan Orlovsky. Once Ryan Clark lit him up, the entire sports media world felt the heat.
So while Shadur may not have had reps with the ones, what else do you want them to do in Cleveland? It's an opportunity for him. It may not be the ideal opportunity. Very rarely is it for a 5th round pick, but it's an opportunity for him to go out there and do in a game what many have reported he's done in practice. Stop with the setup to fail narrative.
Analysts on other networks suddenly went quiet because deep down, they knew Clark wasn't just talking about Orlovsky, he was exposing all of them. Every commentator who hides behind stats, every talking head who rides hype trains while ignoring proven dominance, they all saw themselves in that crossfire. Social media exploded. Clips of Clark's takedown went viral within minutes. Fans were replaying the little vest line like it was a new catchphrase. Memes popped up everywhere. And suddenly Orlovsky wasn't just an analyst, he was the punchline of the week. The audience loved it because it wasn't just entertainment, it was vindication. Finally, someone with real NFL experience stood up and said what the fans have been screaming for years. Stop selling us hype. Start respecting the players who actually show up and win. And the name on everybody's lips after the dust settled? Shedeur Sanders. His stock skyrocketed, not because of PR campaigns or flashy narratives, but because Ryan Clark forced the entire conversation to revolve around the facts. Shadur doesn't need hype. He is the proof. Every snap, every win, every clutch throw backs it up. What Clark did wasn't just a clapback, it was a reset button on the way quarterbacks get judged.
Means multiple teams, 32 teams passed on him multiple times. And now you want me to say the one team that did decide to draft him doesn't have his best interests at heart. The thing is, he was a 5th round draft pick. 5th round draft picks get 5th round treatment, even if we don't feel like they deserve to be drafted in the 5th round. So you're gonna play with some guys who don't make the team. You know who else you're gonna play against?
And from now on, every time an analyst tries to crown the next generational talent too early, fans are gonna remember this moment, this roast, this absolute dismantling, and they'll never look at those takes the same again. And at the end of the day, the tape doesn't lie. Results don't lie. True talent forces recognition whether the media wants to admit it or not. Shedeur Sanders has already proven himself on every stage, transforming programs, delivering clutch plays, and earning the respect of teammates and coaches everywhere. Yet somehow, he still battles unfair narratives cooked up by analysts more invested in hype than reality. And analysts like Dan Orlovsky, they'll keep trying to crown mediocrity and prop up empty storylines. But moments like this prove why credibility, experience, and performance matter more than bloodlines, numbers, or nostalgia. Clark reminded everyone that real greatness shines through the noise, and no amount of cherry-picked stats can cover that up. As for Orlovsky, maybe think about upgrading that vest, because the next time someone holds you accountable, that little piece of fabric isn't saving you. Now I want to hear from you. What do you think about Ryan Clark's takedown and Shedeur Sanders being slept on by the media? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you made it this far, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video so you don't miss what's coming next. See you on the next one.